What-o, chaps? How the devil? How is everyone today? If you can't tell by my perky opening, I feel much better. Thanks for all the health advice. Nothing 24 hours, plenty of painkillers and loads of water couldn't fix. I'm doing all right now. And I've got a special treat for you here. Right, I just hope the audio works. Because, so do you remember yesterday? It reminded me. Long-term viewers. How was your in and out? Yeah, it's not too bad. Much better. I did fizz today. I had a shower about half an hour ago, feeling top notch compared to yesterday. Right, so here's a treat. Do you remember me telling you guys yesterday about me dad being a miserable twat and he goes mental all the time when you're trying to have a normal, civilized conversation? Well, you may remember a couple of months ago me mentioning that we used to play a game, me and my missus. And what we used to do was, I'd set my phone camera on to record, put it on silent, and I'd sit near him in the front room, when he'd be lounging on the three-piece seat, and I'd sit in his vicinity. And then one of us would bring up a very simple, calm, political debate, some form of discussion we could have, where we would purposely wind him up till he went fucking mental. And then we'd tape it for our own amusement and we'd laugh about it afterwards and show it to my friends and we all used to laugh. This video I found when I was playing around on my hard drive looking for old photos. And this is a good one. So hopefully the audio works and I'll play it for you. That is my father's fat foot because I'm sat near him on the settee. And we taped him going fucking ballistic about eating horse meat. Simply said something along the lines of, what's the big deal with eating horse meat? They do it all over the world, don't they? And this is him midway through a fucking needless tirade, so have a listen to this. So there he is. Oh, it's all quiet. Nightmare. Oh, well, I'll have to figure that out one of these days. I wonder if I can do it via the desktop. That's a shame. The audio makes it because it's basically like me, except like me yesterday times 3. So we'll play with that, and I'll hopefully find you something worth listening to. Got plenty of news to raj me. Speaking to me old fella, fucking hell, there's enough news. There's enough news going on today for me to get raged about it. Oh yeah, upload it on YouTube. Sure, I'll do that. That's a good idea. Corned beef, yeah. we know what corned beef is. It's fucking corned horse, isn't it? Especially from Fray Bentos, which, speaking to me old fella, he always just calls Argentinian people Fray Bentos faced cunts. He never refers to them as Argies. It's just those Fray Bentos faced cunts. He's never forgiven them for Diego Maradona, although fantastic player, wasn't he? I think we fell out about that as well, because I was willing to concede that he was fucking superb at football. Anyway, so let me get the news for the day. Right, now, first things first, I want to bring this up. Do you remember me talking about when you go on Twitter, there's always groups of people who insist every time Boris Johnson posts anything on saying, on behalf of the British people, we want you to lock us down more, daddy. And I was trying to tell you a lot not to let it wind you up, because it's blatantly obvious that these people are quite clearly either politically ambivalent shitposters who just love to wind everybody up, or full-blown right-wingers just doing it for a crack because it's funny. And this is another example today. Look, easiest tweet today, fucking albino jellyfish. A year ago, the UK became the first country in the world to administer the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine. I'm extremely proud of the UK-made vaccine, with an incredible 2.5 billion doses delivered at cost to more than 170 countries, saving a great many lives. What's the most popular tweet underneath it? Speaking in behalf of every UK citizen, that we need a 1 month lockdown due to rising COVID cases. This bloke's taking the piss. There's no way that is a real person. It's to rage everybody in it, and that's why it's funny. Yeah, govern me harder, daddy. But there's no way this isn't just some shit poster. Someone like one of you in the chat or me doing it, because every time Boris Johnson posts anything, that's the fucking bog standard comment underneath at the top. Speaking on behalf of every UK citizen, lock us down more, lock us down more. And as I said to you guys the first time it happened, try not to take it too personally, because these are just people taking the piss for the bants. And obviously, you can't get enough bants, can you? In this day and age, you need bants. So yeah, I wanted to share that because it's funny. It's almost every post he puts now. There's someone going, speaking on behalf of every single person in the UK, lock us in for 6 weeks. Please do it. And yeah, that I don't fucking believe it. So don't let it wind you up. Another fluff piece before we get on to the obvious, yeah? The obvious, which everyone's been talking about. I watched Simon Sideways earlier, he was on about it. The Lotus Eaters have been on it. We know what the obvious is. So before we get wound up and I build up a nice feeling of rage, let's do one fluff piece before we get into the obvious, shall we? Because this popped up today and it made me laugh. BBC, why the tiny house is perfect for now. Is it? You know what I told you guys, what pisses me off so much about the BBC? It's the fact that you know for a fucking 100%, the twats who write all these stories aren't practicing what they're preaching. All they do is invent this way that they think the world should be. These fucking professional, managerial, busybody, elite fucking scumbags. They come up with things that are dead important to them, and then they try to make it a reality, whether or not it's true or not. Matt, your view on Tobias Ellwood and the 77th Bridge? I haven't read much about the 77th Bridge. I will tell you, I absolutely hate Tobias Ellwood. Do you mean brigade, by the way? 77th Brigade? Yeah, I was going to say bridge. Is that like the fourth bridge? There's a fourth bridge. Is there a fucking 77th? I hate Tobias Ellwood. And I'll tell you why. Tobias Ellwood is a typical elitist, self-serving, weasel politician / Rupert from Sandhurst. And Tobias Ellwood was very famously, if you remember, another one of the Brexit turncoats who said he was going to do everything he could to get Brexit done because that's what he felt like the majority of the people of the country voted for. And then he promptly backtracked on it. So Tobias Ellwood, I don't give a fuck what he did, what regiment he was in, and where he deployed. Tobias Ellwood is a self-serving slimeball Rupert cunt. And it's a good job that I'm not in the military anymore, because if there was ever an officer deserved a fucking fragging, it's that twat. Thoughts on Dan Jarvis and Johnny Mercer? Jarvis I'm less aware of as well. Johnny Mercer is a fucking arsehole. I'm sick of people going on about Johnny Mercer. First of all, Johnny Mercer wasn't a bootneck. Johnny Mercer was a stinking Rupert Pongo who did his shitty all-arms course. It's not the same thing. It's like 8 weeks or something. Everyone can do 8 weeks. They haven't got you that long. Johnny Mercer is a self-serving shit weasel. The fact that he managed to backdoor a Green Beret means nothing to me. The man is a fucking toad. The fact that he wanted to be a politician proves you he's a toad. The fact that he's a Rupert proves you he's 9 times out of 10 he's a fucking toad. The Royal Marines officers are good because they don't go anywhere near Sandhurst, where they just tip all your brains out and turn you into a fucking clown. That's Sandhurst is like university for soldiers. University, they tip all your brains out and turn you into a left-wing activist. Sandhurst, tip all your brains out, turn you into a fucking chiseler who talks like you've got 3 sets of testicles in your mouth. And then you just become a self-serving fucking shit weasel. So Johnny Mercer is a cunt, and I told him many, many times on Twitter, but he won't get back to me. I took him to task long before before he tried to become the flavour of the month, because he famously shit all over Roger Scruton. Roger Scruton got stitched up by some left-wing activist, and he misquoted him and made out that he was being racist about Chinese people, when all he said was, what was the name of it? George Easton, that's it. Google it. Just Google Roger Scruton, George Easton. It'll all come up. Lying, shitty, weasel, shitbag that he is. Sorry, what was the topic? The topic, holy patata, was what do I think of Johnny Mercer and Tobias Ellwood? And I responded, both of them are self-serving shitbags from Sandhurst. And frankly, if I had to choose between shooting one of them or someone in the fucking Taliban, I think I'd have to flip a coin. That's how much I think of those 2 shit weasels. Yeah, Johnny Mercer threw Roger Scruton, who is a lifelong hero man. And Johnny Mercer threw him under the bus as soon as looked at him. And as far as I'm aware, never publicly apologised, because the second he did it, I was all over him going, so when you're apologising to Roger Scruton, Mercer, you fucking self-serving shitbag. And he didn't say a fucking word. So fuck Johnny Mercer, and especially fuck Tobias Ellwood, because if I have to pick out the 2, Ellwood's even worse, because Ellwood sat there, saw us have a massive referendum in which more British people than ever before voted for something, and then Ellwood did as much as he could to thwart it. And he didn't even do it honestly. He didn't even say, you've all voted and I've heard you, but fuck you. He did it sneakily and said, oh, yeah, we'll do Brexit. Of course I'll do Brexit. I'm a Democrat after all. And then as soon as he got re-elected, he did every dirty trick he possibly could to get it throughout. So Tobias Ellwood, to me, is the worst of the worst. He's worse than someone like Jeremy Corbyn, because at least Jeremy Corbyn, clueless, shit for brains, empty-headed, brains of a 17-year-old student activist and never progressed a day in his life. Jeremy Corbyn, at least, believes what he believes and has been consistent in being a communist. Tobias Ellwood went on telly with a straight face, went on a campaign trail, went knocking on doors in the general election campaign and said, I'm a Democrat, I respect the referendum, respect the vote. And then the second he got returned to his seat, the geggy fucking chinless wonder that he is, he did everything he could to backdoor the backdoor commando. He tried to thwart the will of the British people in a free and fair referendum in which 20 fucking million people told the slimy little toad what he was supposed to do. So Tobias Ellwood can fucking smoke my hat. And regards to 77th Brigade, right? What is it? Just it's Army Intelligence, isn't it? Sort of like the new 4-3 commando doing all the Gucci stuff. Yeah, I, regarding 77th, I don't really care. Someone get him to Google the 77th, and then he'll see that it's their Twitter comment being read out here. All right, then, let me Google it. 77th Brigade. British Army formation, blah, blah. Army 2020 concept based in Berkshire. Out of the Chindits. So what's the role and composition? Cross-white all agencies to achieve the goals of the defence engagement and building stability overseas strategy. 77th Brigade was created to draw together a host of existing and developing capabilities essential to meet the challenges of modern conflict and warfare. Yeah, it's like 4-3 commando for the Army. Yeah, I don't really have much of an opinion. What you're talking about in regards to Twitter? Let me see. The secretive. Well, I'll tell you a fucking obvious one with this. Do you remember on Kingsman when Samuel Jackson's character's like, have you noticed we always got MI5, MI6, CIA, says, but whenever we're talking about the Chinese, we just say Beijing. Right? If we had a fucking secretive regiment, what are they on bastard Twitter for? Why didn't they just shut the fuck up and stop talking about it? They're not very secretive if everyone knows who they are. So I've never understood about our, like, the donut, the Pentagon. It's like, we seem to think that winning the media war is more important than winning an actual war. Like the Navy SEALs, the fucking Navy SEALs. I'm sick of hearing about the Navy SEALs. They're not bad lads. I've worked with a few Navy SEALs. There was two with us in the BSU in Baghdad. And, all right, but one of them reminded me of fucking Barry Chuckle. He was a bit daft. They're just hard blokes. They're not some sort of fucking... They're not some sort of, like, invincible fighting machine. I wouldn't put the Navy SEALs above the SAS or the SBS or the German fucking commandos or whatever, the fucking Israelis especially. All the Navy SEALs are is the best known in the world because for some reason in the West, especially in the Anglosphere, we think you just have to win the media fucking war. We think as long as we get the Navy SEALs writing loads of books and being in loads of video games, yeah, then they're the best in the world. Fuck, they aren't. The ones who are the best in the world, you don't know fuck all about them. So 77th going on about them, the secretive 7th. Well, they're on the fucking Twitter, so how secretive are they? And like I said, that's the same with the donut. If you want to have a useful group, no fucker knows who they are. Because as soon as it kicks off, the first thing that you do is fucking launch 20 cruise missiles at the donut, don't you? Is the obvious one there. 77th, the traitors pushing the government lies. Oh, okay. So there we go. 5-7's just explain to me. Well, that makes sense. Because they're not very secretive, are they? So we've got to assume they're doing something else. Yeah, it's bollocks. It's all bollocks. Well, actually, that reminds me, I was sort of arguing with my missus about fucking Prince Andrew. After I was telling her what I said yesterday, and she's like, yeah, but he's still a fucking criminal and all this. And I was like, yeah, but again, this is now a good segue into talking about the obvious, isn't it? Because one of my arguments when we were having it out this morning was I fully agree that he's a cunt and it's out of order. It's not a good thing. But yet another argument about all of the other things I said, like A, she basically looked like she was 18 anyway and she wasn't 12, and B, never like tortured or set her on fire, and C, she took all the fucking money, and D, she signed that thing and she was happy to get 500 fucking grand and self-serving and all them fuckers who accused Bill Cosby. Another reason I'm talking about it, why it annoys me, while I'm not that bothered about it, is because we had little kids, not fucking 17, 18-year-old girls. We had 10, 11, 12-year-old girls systematically tortured, set on fire, branded, terrified, threatened to murder the fucking family. Some of them did get killed. We got them fucking doing that on an industrial scale for 40 years. But you want me to talk about Prince Andrew, who at best didn't actually donkey one into her anyway, and at worst shagged a 17-year-old bird who was probably old enough to basically know that she was getting well paid for it and it'd be quids in later down the line. So, yeah, he's a cunt. Any 50-year-old man who'd shag a 17, 18-year-old's a dirty bastard. But it's wrist slap territory compared to the systematic industrial grooming, torture, and fucking murder of little kids. So I'm sorry, I just can't get that angry about it. Call me a cunt if you like. I'm not saying he's all right. But I want consistency. If we're going to give him 12 months in it, get it over with. That should be 3 inches of column space, Prince Andrew, once a fucking month. And we've got the industrial rape of children for 40 fucking years. No one gives a shit. And Mark Stein, you guys know I love Mark Stein. Mark Stein was going on about it again and again and again and again for the last few months. Mark Stein's quality. He talks about it. Nobody else will. They're doing it again. They paused operations for a couple of months while the powers that be and the BBC and Silicon Valley and the mainstream media could just fucking tidy up a little bit. And now they're back to it. Back to industrial torture of children. And you want me to talk about fucking Prince Andrew every day? I couldn't give a fuck about Prince Andrew. On my cuntometer, he's barely a blip. He's like, this is my cuntometer. Normal people, Blue Van Man, Paz, Prince Andrew, pep, 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 pep. Oh, a bit of a cunt. 40 years of grooming. The cuntometer's all over the fucking shop. So I don't care. A lot of people giving me shit about that, Prince fucking Andrew. I'm not saying he's sound. I'm saying there's a lot more shit we need to worry about. If we were living in some sort of fucking utopian society, well, then I'll get the Prince bastard Andrew. But until then, let's talk about the 40,000 little kids getting rogered senseless by sweaty fucking foreign men. Let's talk about that for a bit. Fucking mainstream media, they couldn't give a shit. It makes me angry. CNN, MSNBC, BBC, Prince Andrew, Prince Andrew, Prince Andrew, Prince Andrew. He's there with like what looks like a fucking full-grown woman. Didn't want to talk about it when Bill Clinton was at it. Don't want to talk about the fact Epstein's the one who was industrially doing it. The worst we've got with him is one photo with a 17-year-old. I don't give a fuck. You don't care when it's Bill Clinton. You don't care when it's Jeffrey Epstein. You don't care when he's getting murdered. You don't care when 50,000 swarthy foreigners bum a fucking 10-year-olds to death. But now you want me to talk about fucking Prince Andrew for a month? Fuck off. I don't even care. And apparently that makes me like, what? People, lefties are like, oh my God, Bootneck's pro-nonce. I'm not fucking pro-nonce. If I had my way, I'd happily beat him to death with a fucking spiky dildo, but there's bigger fish to fucking fry. And now we can segue into it. So, I'm not talking about him anymore. Fuck off. Don't even mention. Right? So, I found this one. Oh, that's the wrong one. For fuck's sake. This one, by the way, you know what else makes me laugh about these stories about Tony Romo? We'll call him Tony Romo, seeing as everybody else is giving him a synonym. A nom de plume, sorry. Tony fucking Romo. So Tony Romo got his car blew up. Of course he did. Because what we've learned from the last few years, again, I know loads about Tony Romo from listening to Mark Stein, because Mark Stein's class, and he's talked about it loads. Tony fucking Romo, basically, the British state love putting him in prison. They can't get enough of putting him in prison. You would think he dug up the Queen Mother and gorilla fucked her on a park bench while they were filming a reality TV show, right? Tony Romo didn't dig up the Queen Mother and fuck a skeleton on a park bench. Tony Romo simply, in a somewhat ineloquent manner, like the Bootneck does, talked about loads of things that they said were lies and conspiracy theories. And then when it turned out that Tony Romo was 100% accurate in his reporting, and you have to remember to avoid, just like talking about the Prince, you have to avoid the smoke and mirrors and just focus on what's true. Like I've told you loads. You don't have to be charismatic. You don't have to be well-dressed. I don't need to wear a shirt and fucking tie. Sit here like Desmond Tutu or some cunt. Use nice, clever language. All you have to do is tell the truth. And the truth will always come out eventually. Might not be soon, might not be tomorrow, might not be next year, but the truth will out. Right? Tony Romo was telling the truth. So, lo and behold, when it turns out, oh yeah, he was telling the truth. Nobody's ever come out and said, oh yeah, you said there was all them industrial grooming gangs in Telford and Luton raping little fucking kids. That was all lies, that. Libel. No one's ever done that. Because everything he said was fucking true. And you can be a little short ass like he is. You can be a little short ass fucker with, not much nuance and not much charisma. But all you have to be is right. And he's fucking right. And everything he said's right. And that's why they have to use the smoke and mirrors and start every headline with far right Tony Romo. Far right, so you can't listen to anything he says. Well, Hitler was fucking far right. And he occasionally said true things, didn't he? If he said, fuck it, we're invading Czechoslovakia, doesn't mean it's bollocks just because he said it. Yeah. Watch what you're doing down there, love. I've only got one bollock. That was true as well. Being far right doesn't prove anything. All it says is they're trying to smear you because what you're saying on this occasion, I'm not saying he's right all the time. I don't know that much about him. I'm not a fucking biographer. I didn't apply for him to be on This Is Your Life. But the bloke was telling the truth. And that's why we had 5 or 6 years of endless prosecutions. It seemed like it was never going to fucking end. They even did it in Middlesbrough, which wasn't renowned for grooming gangs, but there was a gang of like 20 swarthy men, practitioners, followers of the fucking epileptic dwarf goat herder, the followers of the epileptic dwarf and goat herder. They were all getting fucking rounded up. It doesn't matter. You could places where you didn't even hear about: Middlesbrough, Sunderland, Newcastle, Luton, Leeds, Liverpool, Manchester, Birmingham, Rotherham, Telford, on and on and on and on it goes. So the truth will set you free. Unbelievable. And they feel as if they have to fucking smear him when he's the victim. This is the point I've tried to make about the riots, right? I've talked about it relatively recently with regards to the riot on January 6th, right? They keep going on and on and on and on about it. It wasn't an insurrection. It was a fucking riot. An insurrection would probably involve hundreds of men with assault rifles. It wouldn't involve an unarmed woman in a MAGA hat getting shot in the face by an agent of the state. That's not an insurrection. That's a riot. And on the riot, it was massively overblown. They still don't shut up about it. The fucking insurrection. But ultimately, when you had the mainstream media and the government and the police, the state itself, happily signing off on the left, rioting anywhere they fucking wanted. Rioting in Seattle, rioting in Portland, rioting in LA, rioting in New York, rioting in Chicago, not arresting them. Oh, you want to just declare yourself an autonomous zone and fucking take over 6 city blocks in the middle of one of America's biggest and most popular cities? Crack on, lads. You all know about this because how many times did I do the remember last year when I was doing, actually that was over a year ago now, wasn't it? So I was in Nottingham for nearly a year. You know, when I was doing the freak show, everyone enjoyed that, right? The freak show in Portland. Just let them do whatever they wanted. When you allow hundreds of thousands of radical leftists, communists, agitators, Black Lives Matter activists, fucking full-blown Marxist revolutionaries, when you allow them to do as they please for months, years on end, why is it verboten for the right-wing daft cunts to have a go? You are the ones who emboldened them, not me. This is the point I keep making. I've said this about Tony Romo. What do you think caused the rise? If there was one, I don't believe there was one. They just call everyone far right. They call me it. I'm centre fucking left on most issues. So there was no, as far as I'm concerned, there was no rise of the far right. There was just rise of us calling everybody far right. Rise of us calling everybody left of right of Chairman Mao a fucking Nazi. There was no rise of the far right. They call me fucking far. They call my Mrs. Far Right. She's a fucking Democrat. Now, if you're not a communist, you're far right. So there was no rise of the right. But when they were saying this all the time, the rise of the fucking far right, the rise of the far right, if it did happen, what do you think made it happen? Just ask yourself this simple question. What do you think made people turn right-wing? If they did, I'm sure there's one. Find the cunt. Find him. There's got to be one out there somewhere. There's got to be someone who was centrist and now he's far right. If you sit that bloke down, again, there's not many of them, but if you find one, sit him down and say it with him. What made you go from a reasonable centrist to far right? Was it that we'll only give you 2 options? You have to pick one of these two and tell us which of the two is more close to your position, yeah? What made you go from reasonable centrist to far right? Was it A, a working class midget talking about grooming gangs a bit, but not very frequently in the public eye because we banned him everywhere? Or, and he's not the most eloquent, and he's not the most charismatic, and he's not the most he's not some sort of genius cult leader. He's just a normal working class bloke, untrained, elocution lessons not taken. He's not some charismatic charmer. He's just a normal bloke telling it how it is. Was it that made you sway to the right? Or was it the industrial scale grooming, torture, rape and murder of tens of thousands of children while the BBC and Channel 4 and Sky News and the government and MI5 and MI6 and the police and all of our politicians and every fucking Prime Minister and the health service and every cunt in the country hiding it from you? Which of those two things do you think is going to make people turn to the far right? What's going to do it? Preposition A or preposition B? What do you think makes people the most angry? One short-ass northern bloke, working class bloke, saying, oh, looks like there's some fucking grooming going on here, lads, occasionally, not really in the public eye because you ban him. Or B, the fucking lengthy scree that I've just done and I can't be asked to repeat myself because there was so many fucking people involved, I'll lose my voice if I repeat myself. It's like I talked about how hypocrisy drives people wild with rage. It's hypocrisy. Ultimately, hypocrisy drives people wild with rage. It's the human condition. The hypocrisy, the unending hypocrisy of allowing the left to riot and murder and destroy and loot and burn in a dozen cities across the United States without repercussion is what caused the January 6th riot. I firmly believe it because humans hate hypocrisy. When they see one rule for you and one rule for me, it drives them wild with fucking fury. So the unending hypocrisy of the state is what caused the January 6th riot. And the unending hypocrisy of the state in the United Kingdom and the lies and the persecution of one fucking working class bloke for daring to speak a truth is what causes, if there is a noticeable one, the rise of the right. It's not one fucking bloke talking. It's the industrial scale torture and rape of children. That's what causes it. And if you think otherwise, you've got a head full of cow shit like Tobias Elwood and Johnny fucking monkey ass Mercer. Oh, look, someone else on Twitch. How are you doing? Hi. They're a very direct bunch on Twitch. So is that not a fair comment about this fucking shambles? Don't blame this guy. You caused this. I didn't get that angry when I hear Tommy Robinson. Oh shit, I said his name. Tony Romo. When I hear Tony Romo, Tony, I was on about the time team. When I hear Tony Robinson, time team, fucking great show. When I hear him speak, that doesn't make me angry. I just go, fucking hell, shocking that, innit? But when I read deeply disturbing stories by women talking about murder and rape and torture and abuse, and then you read about them saying, and we rang the police, but they weren't interested. And we told the fucking news, but they weren't interested. It was so I'll tell you what, Spitfan, if you listen to me for more than 3 minutes and you've concluded that I'm a socialist, I don't know what to tell you. But yeah, it's not like everything in life, right? How many times have I said it? Don't listen to what people say, watch what they do. Everybody knows it in politics. Don't listen to what they say, watch what they do. This guy just says things. The people he's having a pop at do things, don't they? They do things. They do things that will curl your fucking toes. So display a modicum of common sense. Finally, Silicon Valley, mainstream media, British politicians, please just have the common sense to gaze inward once in your life and say, maybe we caused this. It wasn't him, it was us. I know it's difficult to face the mirror, but you must see the logic in what I'm saying. He doesn't have the power to cause the rise of the far right. He doesn't have the power to stoke widespread racial hatred. He doesn't have the power to motivate hundreds of thousands of working class men to say, get the fucking brick. He doesn't have that power. You have the power. You are the ones that allowed the industrial torture and rape of children. And that is why people are angry. That's why the mobs are forming. That's why race relations in the UK is at the worst it's ever been. Because of you. It's not him. All he does is talk. You do things. And grooming gangs do things, usually with fire and dildos and drugs and children. So stop talking about fucking Tony Romo and have a look at yourselves. Gaze into the mirror and realise that your failure resulted in the torture and murder of children. Right? I think that's all I need to fucking say on the matter. Oh yeah, other than, yeah, the media's been as disinterested as you would imagine. You type in BBC Telford or BBC grooming gangs or what have you, and you get nothing. They don't care. You just get suspicious fires not linked. Not linked. Of course they aren't. And yeah, if you haven't heard, Tony released a fucking documentary. Tony released another Time Team documentary. They were investigating the industrial rape of children in the fucking medieval era, and they released a documentary about it. Again, all factually accurate, I'm sure. And the obvious and the followers of the desert god took it upon themselves to blow his car up, and once again to get away with it because we have a two-tier legal system. The only, again, trying to be a bit more upbeat about this stuff. I will say that, speaking as working class scum, I don't think that it's a big deal for fellow working class scum, because we can handle ourselves. Like, if we do get the inevitable collapse of the legal system due to corruption and incompetence and nepotism and cover-ups and cronyism, if we do get the inevitable, it's not actually going to be that bad for the white working class in the UK, is it? Because as it stands, they're a second-class system. They're a second-class citizen. If you get punched in the face by a Black Lives Matter activist, chances are he's not getting arrested for it. But if you turn up for a peaceful protest with the Football Lads Alliance, you'll get the fucking police dog set on you. So it's got to the point where it's so bad, and this is why it's going to collapse eventually. We've crossed the Rubicon. It's got to the point where the general public, the working class majority, the white working class majority, have got nothing to lose, really, have they? If the system collapses and we just have wide-scale chaos, and we've got sort of northern, which is what I've always said is going to happen. If you've got widespread chaos and it gets to the point where you've got widespread civil disobedience, you've got gangs of like grooming gangs and white nationalists fighting each other in the fucking streets, that'll be better for the white working class, because as it stands, what we've got now is swarthy foreign men can rape your kids and the police won't do anything about it, and the BBC will help them, and the BBC will cover it up, and Sky News will cover it up, and Channel 4 will just talk about Prince fucking Andrew, yeah, while there's 30 men dug up your fucking wife and daughter, and they'll just talk about Prince Andrew. So at this point, when you're getting no justice at all from the police, it's probably in your interest to hope for a total collapse, isn't it? This is where this is what I've talked about. This is why it's coming, because they've allowed it to get so bad that the general public are going to just be like, you know what, fuck it then. Fuck it then. Can't get any worse. Might as well have total fucking collapse, because I'm not getting anything out of this. My old fella's always been the same. Like I've talked about, my old fella never rings the police. He doesn't trust them. He doesn't like them. And on the off chance, I think we got burgled once. I was on Christmas leave and I was working Christmas rear party, so I didn't take Christmas leave. So I was at 4-2 Commando. I think it was about 2001, and we got burgled. And I rang up and I went, "Oh, what did they take?" And he went, some shit, DVDs and that. Must have been kids. And I went, "Oh, we insured." And he said, "Oh, we fuck. I'm not ringing the police." I said, "You have to fucking phone the police. You want to get a crime number? They're going to insure." He's like, "Fuck them. I don't ring them." Working class people like us, you don't even ring them. I've never fucking rang them. Whenever anything in my life's happened to me, being robbed or being in a fight or whatever, anything, witnessed anything, I'd never get in touch with the police because you get nothing out of it. Police see us as the enemy. So it's got to the point now where a collapse is coming. Like I said, I think we have crossed the Rubicon because normal working class, white working class blokes are just going, "You know what? It can't get any worse." That's what Brexit was all about. People were going, "You know what? It can't get any worse. Fuck it. Trump, you know what? What have I got to lose? Big orange guy." That's what happens. So it's going to kick off. The corruption and cronyism, nepotism and incompetence for the last 40 fucking years has got to the point where it's going to kick off. I don't think you get to vote you out of this now. And when it does, you know, yeah, I thought I was going to mention Randy. I'm sorry, I can't help myself. So we're in the shit. Could it be that we're getting close to a domestic war? Yeah. Well, I've told you this, GMP, though. The issue is the UK's only had widespread migration since Tony Blair came in. I was talking about this with some fucking lunatic on Quora the other day. And the issue is they haven't got the numbers. It's all well and good. You might think that if you live in fucking Luton or Bradford. But if you really know what you're talking about and you've done a deep dive on the numbers, they do not have the numbers. So this is why centrist people like me have always said, why don't we walk back from the brink and just start imposing the same common sense liberal values that we had under Thatcher, where you have a process for immigration, where you have manageable numbers of people coming in, where you apply the law. You don't need to go far, right? You just have to imply the existing laws that are already in place. Deport people that deserve to be deported. Vet people that want to move in. Spread them out so that they integrate like they did when I was a kid. And I had one of my best friends in school was Indian. I had a good mate in secondary school who was Pakistani, and we all got on with each other because there wasn't too many. They spread them out and everybody got on and everybody integrated. You don't need to go far fucking right. You just need to apply the laws that we had in the 80s. But because they have failed to do it and let the piss be ripped out of us for 30 years, it's going to kick off. And when it happens, they're all going to be sitting there going, "Fucking hell, well, I didn't see that coming." Well, I did. Anyone who's got a fucking hole in their ass saw it coming. And we warned you and we warned you and we warned you, but you wouldn't do anything about it. So you're going to get wide-scale civil disobedience. I've used the Northern Ireland analogy loads of times because that's what you're going to get. Jason, the country's not going to collapse. I guarantee it. I guarantee it. It's going to get bad before it gets better, but it won't collapse. They don't have the numbers. The followers of the epileptic midget don't have the numbers. The communists don't have the numbers. It's not going to collapse. It's just going to kick off for a while. It's going to be, if it gets like Northern Ireland, they lose. You've got literally 20 million white working class lads, and you've got a handful of elites, communists, and posh upper crust twats at the BBC and Channel 4, communists, and you've got the intersectional umbrella who refuse to... I mean, it's weird, isn't it, how it's all linked to race for them, because they are racist. They have the racism of small expectations. They think they know what you think and feel just because of how you look. Working class lads don't feel like that. It's us that integrated black and brown people for the last 40 fucking years. It's us. You dump them all in our council estates, and we're the ones who make friends with them and teach the kids English and raise them to support the same shit football teams we do. They call us racist. We are the ones who integrated them. Thanks very much. It only went wrong when you stopped applying the law equally, stopped vetting people, and broke the compact, the rule of law, which is what guarantees and protects all of our freedoms. So we're fucked, but it's your fault. And it'll kick off, and you'll get your widespread civil disobedience, but then they lose. So, like I said, I am black-pilled because I don't believe that you're going to just be able to calmly vote you out of this anymore. But I'm also white-pilled in the respect that when it does massively kick off, the working class communities of Britain win. 100%. We've also got about fucking 3 million veterans. Do you remember that story? In fact, let me see if I can find that bookmark, because that's going to help make my point, because I want to finish on a high note. The point I've made for ages, right, is it's got to get bad before it gets better. But yeah, we go. A bookmark. Whoops. I found the bookmark I was looking for, and I clicked on it straight away, and it took me to it. Yeah, let me just share this screen again. Because this is my high note to leave on for those of you that are depressed about losing in the chaos. Because it's a fucking good point. It's oh yeah, this is the only story I could find on the BBC about Susan myself. Yeah, that was me. I Susan myself. This was the only story I could find about it on the BBC. They're not interested. But they haven't got the numbers, so you don't need to worry about it. When the morons in charge inevitably lead us into destruction because they arrogantly thought they could do as they fucking pleased for as long as they liked. It's not a fight they're going to win. But here's a story just to finish up. Not only are they outnumbered 10 to fucking 1, in fact, more than that, about 50 to 1. Tons of black and minority ethnic, Asians, everybody else. They're normal centrist people. They're not going to side with communists or fucking grooming gangs or radical jihadis. But even if all of them did, they'd be outnumbered 20, 30, 40 to 1. And then finally, you've got this old chestnut. Because they didn't integrate successfully, more British regulars at Allen's snack bar have joined militant groups than served in the country's armed forces. Think of that. So one team that's obviously going to be bolstering your numbers when the elite lead us down the garden path to fucking chaos is, think of that. You're going to have hundreds of thousands, people like me, hundreds of thousands of physically fit, mentally robust combat veterans who straddled the battlefield like a mighty colossus. You think you're going to lose? How many British followers of the epileptic midget joined the army and did a bit of weapons training? I mean, and none of them joined the fucking elite units. I think there was one in the Marines I met in my entire career. So you've got no fucking chance. You literally, as well as everybody else, you've got hundreds of thousands of pissed off combat veterans. And unlike the frogs and the Germans, we didn't sit it out the war on terror. So we've got lads like me who deployed 5 fucking times, who were under fire personally. I can't even count how many. Times. A lot of people, because 99% of the military are in fucking rear echelon jobs. When I was in Kajaki on my final tour, we come under fire about 100 fucking times. I can't even count, probably more. Nearly every time we went out on patrol, we were doing advanced contact patrols. Blokes like me, physically fit combat veterans, trained in fucking bullet and blade, who've been shot at 150 times. And you think we're going to lose to soft-skinned middle-class communists because 99% of them are elites, upper-educated, Oxford, Cambridge. Oh, I say, old boy, let's join the revolution. Ha ha, fuck off. We could probably beat them with just the plumbers, the bricklayers, the scaffolders, and the window cleaners and the bus drivers, let alone 500,000 pissed off war veterans. So it's not going to go tits up. All I've said, like I've said from the beginning, is it needs to get bad before it gets better. Not good to you. I'm not Rome Rip, but fortunately, the Royal Marines is a pretty large, small elite organisation, and there are tens of thousands of veterans of numerous wars alongside me. So I can do some. I'll do some Zoom training. I'll do some pistol shooting and unarmed combat over fucking Zoom for you. But yeah, so don't worry about it. It's not going to go badly. It's going to go badly in that, you know, the internet connection is going to be shit, and you probably won't be able to get a fucking. Probably won't be able to get a delivered kebab for a few months. But when it massively kicks off, it's not something you're going to lose. So maybe I'm wrong, and we'll get a genuine centrist, law-abiding government that respects the vote and respects the working class majority and cares about the rights and freedoms and laws of the United Kingdom, that hallowed land. Maybe I'm wrong, and somehow it'll come back from the brink, and a new party will arise before the 2024 general election, and they'll go through the House of Parliament and the deep state and the mainstream media and MI5 and MI6 and the police. The College of Policing wants fucking bulldozing. Maybe I'm wrong, and somehow it'll get walked back from the brink by reasonable centrist, centre-right, old-school conservatives. But if I'm not wrong, and we get led down the garden path by people like the albino jellyfish who talk a fucking good game and then turn into left-wing woke fucking daft cunts the second they get the keys to Downing Street, and it does boot off inevitably after a few more years of decay and unburied dead and bin liners all over the fucking streets and grooming gangs shafting everyone's kids, you're not going to lose it. So yes, that was a bit of a bad-tempered hour-long stream, but there's some white pills there in the end. I just think it needs to get bad before it gets better, because our leaders haven't got the mettle to do what's right and apply the law equally and behave in a conservative fashion. So there you go. Stevie Orn served in the Holgate end. There you go. He's worth 30 followers of the fucking snack bar, isn't he? Right. I think that'll do us for the day. That was a long rant. And black pills coming tomorrow. We'll get some indirect fired black pills down tomorrow. All right. And the salmon and trout is much better today, Walter. Thank you very much for asking. All right. Cheers, guys. Like it and share it and all of that bollocks. And I will be back for another tirade tomorrow. Cheers, guys. See you all very soon. Good night.